Hey, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this multi-voltage power supply out of a broken iMac computer. So I had this broken iMac and I pulled the power supply out, and this DC-DC board I just cut in half because I didn't need that extra bit, just the ATX connectors, and it also has the power line input, and I am using a terminal block and this 3D printed box that I printed. Came out kind of crappy, and I'll show you how I fixed that later, but you can see the box here is what I designed to have a fan and some a spot for the line in voltage. So now I'm just pressing some nuts into the fan and putting it in the enclosure and sealing it up with some really tiny M3 socket screws. Now once I have the fan in there, I'm going to put the main part of the power supply in, and I'm threading in some more M3 screws from the bottom to go in the standoffs and hold it into place. This enclosure is very small, but is as big as I could do on my Lulzbot Mini, so it's a little tight, and the order operations of putting this together is as follows. I couldn't put the fan in after the fact, or I wouldn't have anywhere to get my fingers in to tighten up the nuts. So just adding the line in, and I also modeled in some holes and I'm using some M3 socket head screws again to keep that in there. And I printed this way too thin, and you can see it's got a bit of a flex to it. This isn't that much of an issue once I put the lid on and all the other components inside. Now I'm just connecting up the main power to the line voltage and doing the ATX pin out for the DC-DC converter, and just cutting the wires to the fan and soldering them directly to the 12 volt and the ground of the board. And now that I have that soldered onto the board, I'm just cutting out all of the length of the original 14-pin connector because I don't need them to be as long as they were. And now just adding a terminal block to the top that I can attach my wires to, and then have kind of a safe way of attaching wires to whatever voltage that I need for a project. And once again, I'm using these M3 screws, and these sets that you get on Amazon are really nice for having various sizes around. And just printed out a sticker that gives me the voltage of each of the terminal blocks. And now I'm just stripping these wires, and after doing this, I went out and bought a nice wire stripper, so I don't have to use one of those vice grip style ones. And just connecting all of the corresponding wires up to their voltage on the terminal block. And in this I have two 12 volts, two 5 volts, two 3.3 volts, and two grounds. Now I'm just attaching the top with just two for right now. I want to give it a quick test and make sure everything works. So I'm going to plug it in and get out my multimeter and check each of the terminals to make sure they're working and they're coming out at the correct voltage. So I'm just going through each of these, and everything seems to work pretty well. So now that I know that that's good and everything's working, I'm just sealing up the rest of the box. And I printed this in ABS, and it printed really crappy. I should have done a little bit thicker wall, but I didn't want to print it so have such a long print. So as always, use some danger tape to the rescue and cover up all the ugliness of the printing. So just adding this red and white tape and trimming it up to cut out the hole for the fans. And I'll probably reprint this box at some point for how bad it came out. But for the time being, it works for the project that I needed it for. So just plugging it back in now that it's all sealed up, make sure everything's still working. And you can use it to test LEDs, see if they're working. And you can also use some alligator clips and clipping it up to this 12-volt LED here to make sure it's working. So hopefully that gave you an idea of some ways you can repurpose a broken computer, and it's a nice thing to have when you have a benchtop power supply, but you need different voltage outputs, and you don't want to build out a breakout board to do different voltages. So hopefully you learned something in this video. Hopefully you have something that you can repurpose and not just throw it away. And thank you very much for watching. And if you have any questions, leave them below. And we'll see you later. All right, bye.